Can you hear me?
I can.
Oh, good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm just feeling a lot more bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Maybe we need to start doing this at noon all the time.
I know. We only interview European authors.
That's right.
That's the thing.
That's the new thing. That's our thing.
I know. It's kind of funny to have all this vitamin D coming in through my shades.
I know, and I can hear I think there's leaf blowers out, so that's
Oh, perfect.
yeah,
That's
you know.
that's that.
But
Your
Tommy,
is always so good during the Zooms. My cat, I've had to like barricade her because she thinks she is involved in every room.
yes, she's laying back there, but I'm sure she will be showing her presence very soon. She's not supposed to be on the furniture, but
Yeah, well, yeah, you kind of when Zooms happen, then everybody misbehaves.
she's our comedic relief.
Okay,
So,
I turned on the chat for everyone. If y'all want to, feel free to say hello. If you're already here, I'm the prompt people. I'm so impressed.
yay, I hope everyone's enjoying their lunch. Is everyone on lunch break? And I have I'll show Claire, but I've got my
Nice. Yes,
yes, my 70-year jubilee
I love that.
in honor of all things Anglophile today.
That's perfect. I should have brought mine out. Oh well. I've made the
Yes,
bear.
Kimberly gave this to us
Yes,
during the unfortunate passing of the Queen.
yes.
Yes.
And I've
So,
started to collect some of the coronation plates and mugs and stuff from other um like from past kings and queens. So
oh,
I know. I'm like, I've never had a collection of anything. I think that's going to be my collection. So,
I think so. Maybe you're going to want my dish from her coronation that my
oh,
aunt gave
nice.
me.
Yeah. Will you will that to me?
I will. Well, you have to fight Mary Beth. Mary
I
Beth
know.
likes,
Mary Beth has all the good stuff, as she
yeah,
should, being that
she's
she's your
she's
daughter.
got her sticky notes out, putting everything out just in case something happens to me in the next 40 years.
That's so
So,
funny. Oh, hi, Brenda. I've missed talking to you. She just chatted to just the host and the panelists. So
oh,
yeah.
hello.
I wonder if any former book lovers from Book Lover Weekend are on here. If you are, feel free to hop in the chat. I
Have
would love.
you
Now
have
I
you
actually know folks
recovered?
like
Yes.
old friends at this point.
Hmm.
So have you had a good morning?
Did I had Pilates.
Nice.
Pilates. And then we had our events meeting. So it's
Mhm.
very exciting. All the upcoming events coming up at Fabled.
Yes, I
And
know.
but yeah, now I get to do this and I have a book buying appointment this afternoon. So I
Oh,
got
that's
back out to
fun.
the store.
Where is this book buying appointment coming from?
Somewhere from far away, and I just can't remember at the moment.
Yes.
I'll have to see.
Are they
Yeah.
flying in, or I'm assuming yes?
Yes. Yes. So
Oh, hi, Deanne from Arlington. She was at Book Lovers.
hello.
Her.
I know we already miss it. Can't wait for the next
I
one.
know.
Hi, Claire.
Hi, Claire. How are you?
Hi, hi, Alison. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us across the pond.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. How's my sound? Am I sounding okay?
Done great to me.
Done
I can
great.
hear you for sure. Um,
There,
Fantastic.
I was saying I'm drinking coffee out of my Queen Elizabeth 70th Jubilee mug in honor of all things Anglophile today.
Oh, perfect. I love it. So
but
it's midday there.
yes, it is.
Noon.
Yes.
Elizabeth and
I
I were saying how much we
hey,
like it though, because
I,
usually
I
we're in.
love the look of you. Yes, I was just gonna say I love the look of your bookshop. I've been Googling and I'm like, at some point I'm coming.
Please
Oh,
do.
yes. Yes, we saw it came up on the event grids the last couple of days. We're like, I would love to have Claire at the shop.
Oh my
So,
gosh.
I'd like to. I would very much like to. I like the owl. I bet everyone takes photos with the owl.
Yes, he
yes.
is definitely a photo op. There are many photo ops around this shop for sure, but we would roll out
Yes.
the carpet for you. It would be so fun.
Okay. I'm gonna put in a bid for it. Good
Good.
Oh,
idea.
good.
Awesome.
Very nice. Yeah, we had someone come from Wales a couple of months ago, and we introduced him to his first Mexican food while
Yum.
he was here. So we can show you a big Texas time if you come.
Oh, I would love that. I would love that.
Great. Okay.
Well, I'm
Well,
gonna go ahead and get us started. If we have people hop on, welcome to the Fabled Book Club. It is looking a little different around here because we are usually Zooming from in the evening, but we made a special time for this author today. We're so excited to talk to Clare Leslie Hall and talk about her book, which is extraordinary. I'm so excited. Many of you are aware of how we do this, but just in case you're not, spoilers abound here. We will be talking about the beginning, middle, end of the book. So if you haven't finished, definitely exit out of the chat and you can watch us later because we will be sending a recording of this book club 24 hours later. It will be in your email inbox. And you can click on it and watch the entire Zoom, especially if you're on a lunch break right now and you can't watch all of us. Not to worry at all, we will send it to you. We are asking questions ourselves, and we're offering the opportunity for you guys to ask questions in the chat. So if you want to ask Claire a question about the book, feel free to type it in there. We'll do our best to get to it. And at the end, stick around for our next book club announcement. So I would like to officially welcome Claire and let Elizabeth tell us a little bit about her.
all right, so we are so thrilled today to have Clare with us. Clare Leslie Hall is a novelist and journalist who lives in the wilds of Dorset, England. Please don't brag too much. It's amazing with her family. Under the name Claire Empson, she published 2 domestic noir thrillers, Him and Mine, that were published in the UK and Germany. She has always loved The Go-Between by L.P. Hartley, and Broken Country is a nod to it, featuring a forbidden love affair with catastrophic repercussions. Broken Country is her U.S. debut. So I have to tell you, Claire, I was looking at my Simon & Schuster catalog back in September, and something about the description of your book just sort of sounded really good to me. Sometimes I have kind of spidey senses on what's going to be a really good book. And I read Broken Country and I went up to the store and I said, in October of 2024, I have already read the best book of 2025. And nothing has knocked it off. I don't imagine it will. At this point, I'm reading books that are already, coming out in August and September. And it is just the most special book. And I just have to say, as a reader, I appreciate so much having a book like yours. It was a masterpiece. And I tell people the way I sell it is an episode of All Creatures Great and Small, but with a love triangle and murder. So that's the perfect book for me.
Oh, what a great way to describe it. I love that. Can I just say hi, everybody, and thank you so much, Alison and Elizabeth, for inviting me on. I'm really excited to chat to you, and I love a spoiler chat because usually it has to be spoiler free.
Well, we love doing a book club this way, and that way, again, people can save it and watch it later. I know I chose the book for my personal book club, and we're going to be speaking about it in June. So I told everyone, register for this and save it until after you're finished with the book. But can you just, to give everyone a brief glimpse into the summary of the book and describe it for our listeners and how you came up with the idea?
Sure. So, just as you've described, really, it's about this very passionate love triangle that takes place in a small English village during the 1950s and the 1960s and culminates with a murder trial. And it's the story of Beth, who's a young woman, and she's completely torn between 2 men. There's her farmer husband, Frank, and there's her first love, Gabriel. And the story kicks off when Gabriel, now a very rich and famous author, unexpectedly returns to the village and turns her life upside down. It's really a love story. It's about love in all its forms, but it has got a murder trial in it. So it's courtroom drama and mystery. And the idea came surprisingly really from a moment of horror because, and I can tell you that I haven't told anyone this yet because this moment of horror happened again on Saturday. But anyways,
Oh,
we bought our youngest son a puppy, and my husband, this is going back 6 years, was running in the fields. We live in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of farmland, in an old farmhouse. And he was in the fields, and it was lambing season. The dog ran into a field of lambs, and the farmer threatened to shoot him. He didn't actually attack any of the lambs. And after 10 minutes of talking about it, it was just really weird because this very vivid scene just popped into my head, and I could see the farmer and his wife in their field of sheep, and I could see a little boy running towards them, and I just had the idea that the boy reminded them of the son they'd recently lost. So I had all of that, and I also could sense that the boy's father, there could be this very sort of visceral, physical connection between Beth and Gabriel. And I literally couldn't wait to write it. The reality was very different, obviously. It was 4 years and millions of drafts. I'm sure we can get into that. But I will just quickly tell you that this naughty dog, Magnus, on Saturday morning, the problem is he hasn't been neutered, and there was a bitch on heat at a farm, and you can cross these fields. And basically, I was outside, emptying the rubbish or something, and he just disappeared. And then we got this note, this angry farmer's note saying, your dog is chasing sheep and horses, and a farmer will shoot him. So I was so devastated and frightened and driving all around looking for him. The farmer returned him. But I just thought, isn't it ironic that that was my starting point, and this naughty dog 7 years later has just done the same thing again. Anyway, I've booked him into the vet. That's it. Magnus. That's it for you, Magnus. It's all over. So there we go.
Yeah, I will say, I know that some people were worried at the beginning scene of, oh, it's, a dog dies. I'm like, well, it's such a, what about the lambs? They mean so much to the farmers as well. That's a very sticky situation.
Yeah, I'm glad you felt that. And it's something I really wanted to get across. And it's something that I also felt as a pet owner. We were so devastated. And yet again, I was devastated to think that we could lose him. But the more I thought about the farmers, and actually, because in the UK, you can just walk on the footpaths, you can take your dog off the leash. And this happens the whole time. I thought how awful it is. It's not just about the livelihood, it's really the fact that they see them all the way through their pregnancies, and then they lose these lambs. So I'm really glad if that came across, because I know people hate dogs dying, but I think also farmers hate their lambs being savagely attacked.
Yes.
So true. Claire, I'd love for you to talk kind of a little bit about your writing journey, especially with publishing in England versus publishing in the USA. This is our first opportunity to sell your book. I'd love for you to enlighten us on that.
Yeah, so it was a long old journey, I must say. I've been a journalist the first half of my career. I'm in my 50s now, and I was writing novels or starting writing scenes in my early 30s. I got published just before I was 50. So I think there was an awful lot that went in, including having a very young family and having a job and all those things, not having much time to do it. And the first two novels, they did way better actually in Europe. They were published in 9 countries as well as Germany, and I think that was because they were positioned more as what I felt they were, which was dark love stories with a really strong element of suspense. And so when it came to writing Broken Country, I felt, because I've been positioned in the UK as a crime author, I felt a little bit stymied by that sort of crime author tag. And the book was very experimental to begin with. And eventually I actually changed agents, and I hit on this agent, luckily for me, who really got what my writing was. And I remember saying to her, there's going to be a murder trial, but I do write love stories. And she said, absolutely. And I was like, I think it could be like The Paper Palace. And she said, I think it could be like The Crawdads. So she just totally connected with what it is that I do, which is really write books that are a bit of a genre mashup, and that's what I like to read. I like to read, maybe one of my favorite books of all time is The Great Gatsby, and that's a love story and a murder story at the same time.
Hmm.
And so the difference between UK and US, it might just be that Broken Country was my lucky book that seems to have connected, and that's been so incredible. It's actually sold in, quite a lot of countries around the world, and you don't have any idea when you go on submission what will happen. And I knew that my new agent loved the book. I knew that my foreign rights agent loved the book. I had absolutely no idea that it would connect. But the experience of being published in America has just been really, really amazing. And I just it's just been a real blast. I found everybody so welcoming. I've been already, I think, been to the States 3 times doing sort of little mini promo tours. It's been absolutely like a dream come true, I have to say.
Did you know that this week is the 100th anniversary of The Great Gatsby?
Yes, I do.
Published. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I
We're
think
gonna
I'm going to get the one of
laugh.
those special editions.
Oh yes. Well, you're gonna
Yes.
laugh at my next question. It was a perfect segue. So I love a book that defies genre. This is sort of a historical fiction, a family drama, a love triangle, and a murder, and a courtroom drama. Did the book always have these elements when you dreamed it up, or did some of those added as the novel progressed over these 4 years?
So definitely, it definitely did come in layers. I would say it was a very passionate love triangle. That spark, that sheep field scene that comes in chapter one, that that was there from the very beginning. And I always had the dual timelines, and what I wanted to create with those was, I hope that the reader would feel in 1955, the first timeline, very swept up by that incredibly passionate first love affair between Beth and Gabriel. And then in the next chapter, 1968, I really hope that they would feel, oh, but hang on a minute, she's with this really great guy, Frank. And so I hope they would, the dichotomy that she feels as a woman, I hope the reader would feel. That was my intention. I did always know that a man died, and I guess we can say who it is. But I always knew it was Jimmy. He did die in a different way at the beginning. But it was around 2 years into writing it. And I should say that I had two gaps, probably because my previous agent felt that the book wasn't working. I think she was right. I think it wasn't quite working, and it was contemporary at that time. And it not only had Beth's voice, it had Gabriel and Frank's voice. And it was in those gaps, and it was in the eventual decision to change agents, that I completely understood how to do it. And it's funny, I think as a writer, it's really difficult to stop and to walk away, and to give up, in effect. And I think it really helped because the characters were so embedded in my heart, I knew I couldn't give up. So that helped with my commitment, perhaps, and it helped me find a way through. And it helped me see eventually this is a period novel. And I think that was partly because I was influenced by books like The Great Gatsby, like Brideshead Revisited, like The Go-Between, as we say, which is a very English novel featuring love across the class divide. Um, and also because I really wanted to show the sort of class and gender imbalance between Beth and Gabriel. So, Beth is a rural working class girl, and Gabriel is an upper class, entitled wealthy boy, but they still fall madly in love with each other, and they're just as clever, and they have the same aspirations. And what I realized was I needed to push it back to 1955, when in rural Britain, there was such a stark class divide, and a woman couldn't, could go to Oxford University, but women of best class, it was very highly unusual. And of course, in the novel, her life gets knocked off course very, very easily. And so, to answer your question, I had all those things, and I can remember saying to my partner John, gosh, it needs a murder trial. But I had never written courtroom drama, and I didn't know if I could do it. And so I went and spent a week at the Old Bailey, which is a very famous old 12th century courthouse. And it was incredibly inspiring because you can sit in the public gallery, and I watched a murder and manslaughter trial for a week. And I just got completely caught up in it. And I realized how sort of theatrical the whole thing is. And so I came home and wrote my version of it. And I think that really ramped up the suspense in the novel. So although a man died, and although I think I do like to write a novel with short chapters with cliffhangers and suspense is kind of riven into me somehow or other, emotion is always my starting point. And this story came in layers, and I think the depth that it has is really because of maybe giving up sometimes, going back to it, and writing so many drafts.
Mm. Now, I have to say again here a little bit with the triggers with the first chapter, but also a lot of people will say, "Well, I love Triangle. I don't like to read about infidelity," and I was like, I don't either. Been happily married 29 years. You know, it just I love a happy
Me
long.
too.
Oh,
Snap.
yeah,
Oh,
yes.
actually, no, that's not true. I'm married 25, sorry, but we've been together 29. There you go.
Okay. Well, but
Yeah.
there's something about the way you wrote their backstory that made it okay, because just the emotion and the betrayal, the deception made it okay for me to read it. I don't know. I've told anyone, if you're worried about that, don't be, because there's something about the way you wrote that was so heartbreaking and okay to read, you know?
Oh, I'm so glad you think that. And actually, I worked quite hard on that because obviously I don't like infidelity either. And I know it would make Beth risks making her a very unlikable narrator. Um, and I think some readers do struggle with that. But I tried to reveal the tragedy in her story in sort of increments that would hope, so that hopefully when she makes the decisions, the bad choices, let's be honest,
Mm.
you understand at least why. So you may not excuse her, but you understand why she does what she does. So, for example, she kisses Gabriel at the wedding, and the very next chapter is the oak tree. And so you understand how raw, and really, Frank is a saint like in some ways, but he also is guilty because he doesn't give Beth any space to grieve or remember Bobby. And that's really what throws their relationship into turmoil. Had he been able to? And of course, he's shut down by his guilt and the fact that he feels so responsible, and the fact that she blames him probably unfairly because she's at fault too. But all of that is going on, and neither of them are talking about it. And there was this big what if locked inside Beth and Gabriel. And what I liked was the idea of a couple who had resisted each other, and their relationship had gone wrong for miscommunication, really. And suddenly there they are at this crossroads. And this big second chance comes at a moment when she's in absolute turmoil. So they were, as a novelist, those were kind of really kind of good, exciting problems to have.
There is a lot of detail about lambing and country life in England, which as Americans, we just eat that up. And you talk about being an ex-Londoner. How did you learn so much about this trade?
Yeah, so I really wanted the sort of countryside to become like a character in its own right. And actually, we live in this very old farmhouse, and the land around us is owned by this farmer who's 85, who was born in our bedroom, but they sold the house and kept the land. And what I realized was that although the tractors bomb up and down our little lane and I wake to the sound of sheep every morning, I didn't really know anything about farming. So I spent quite a bit of time with farmers. I learned how to milk cows, and I went harvesting with a farmer one day, and I went and stayed with a couple on a small holding, not here actually, but about 3 hours away. And that was amazing because I could see that despite the sort of financial hardship, they were really passionate about the land and its wildlife. And she sort of walked me around, and she could name every single plant and every single bird, and she could show me the hide that this kind of very ramshackle hide lookout post that her husband had built so she could watch these nesting birds. It was just riven into their beings, really. And so that completely inspired me. And an awful lot of the research never went in, but I'm so glad, because I wanted it to be, well, I think what I really noticed with these farmers was that I'd be in the combine harvester, and that was wonderful. We'd be going up and down the fields, and then the farmer would say, "Oh, look," and a sort of red kite would be soaring right in front of us so that you could just sort of see its wingspan in great detail. Or he'd say, "Look at that huge hare." And I just felt that they were so connected to nature in a way, well, that certainly I wasn't, and still could never hope to be to the level that they are. But it definitely opened my eyes to the sort of beauty of pastoral life. And I think that the journey that Beth goes on in the novel, realizing that even though her life's been knocked off course, actually there's a form of education and there's a form of beauty and passion in the land. And I kind of, to a much lesser degree, feel I went on that journey myself, because I used to not feel that connected to nature, and now I feel it much, much more.
Love that.
Love it. I'm always fascinated by the plot devices that authors use. And did you, of course, from the very beginning of the novel, we know somebody has been murdered and we know somebody's on trial, and probably we know who these people are. So what was behind your decision to not let the reader know who these two individuals were at the beginning of the novel? I mean, for me, it made it propulsive, where I was just wanting to get through to find out who actually were these two individuals. But did you decide to do that for a propulsive plot?
Yeah, I think I did. And I think actually, so that scene, that opening scene, the farmer's dead, and all anyone wants to know is who killed him. I can tell you that that line, it used to start with the opening chapter, which is Frank telling Beth that Gabriel Wolfe moved back into Meadowlands.
Mm.
And we were on holiday in Turkey, and it was a really early morning, and I woke up, and I love those early mornings, and everyone else was asleep. And I think it was in one of my breaks when I was sort of reluctantly had given up Broken Country, and suddenly that whole prologue came to me, and I just sat down and wrote it. I couldn't wait for my husband to get up. I'd go, I think I've got it. And I think it was partly, well, it was that gave me the sense that there was going to be a trial. I knew that you couldn't tell which farmer it was. And actually it could have been, there were a few farmers. It could have been David, I suppose. Could have been Jimmy, could have been Frank. It just came to me. And then I worked really hard to make sure that you couldn't tell until maybe the end of part 4 that it was Frank. Oh, sorry, that it was Jimmy, and that Frank was the one that was on trial. So yes,
I
just
was
completely
gobsmacked.
forced suspense. Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
were you? That's so good.
Yes.
I was
I'm
too.
so glad.
Great. Okay, my next question is kind of, has maybe two parts. First, you said that you had not written anything courtroom related in your books or courtroom drama. So, I'd love to hear about if you enjoyed that, if you want to include that in another book. And I personally kept waiting for Beth to take the stand. Was that a choice that you didn't have her do it, or in your mind, and was that a choice of the lawyers? Or I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I don't know whether I would like to do it again, but I think it would be a bit samey if I did another courtroom drama. So I probably wouldn't for the next book, which will be similar, I suspect, but not in terms of courtroom drama. I really love doing it, but I think it was very, very hard for me because I have absolutely zero legal background. And it's just not the kind of thing I particularly understand, I don't think. But I had this really wonderful retired police detective who turned crime author, who I had a few Zooms with, and then he read my chapters. And he was just so helpful. And he said, no, you're getting it right. But the most helpful thing he said when we were having the early Zooms, he said, don't let the way you think it happens, and the way it happens in real life get in the way of the drama. Just put the drama first. So I wanted, and at this point, Beth was the narrator. I wanted you to see everything unfold through her eyes. And I do remember having the conversation with my agent, and she said, I just wonder if we should have Beth on the witness stand. And I think that if fingers crossed, it becomes a movie, I bet Beth does go on the witness stand. But I made the decision, I wanted to have her always watching in the gallery, and that was how we would see the whole case unfold. And actually, I Googled a lot. Would the wife of a defendant, who's on trial for murder/manslaughter, would she have to testify? And I saw that often the wife wouldn't be called because they would think that they were biased. So that was like my let out. I kind of, in some ways, I feel a bit sad that because it would have been so much drama having her in the witness stand. But anyway, that was the decision I made.
That's good.
To
I'm
say,
glad to know because I was waiting, but it was good to know. That's awesome.
yeah,
Yeah.
my husband's a trial attorney, and they get it wrong all the time on
Ah,
TV, and we don't know, he's kind of a buzzkill when I watch shows with him that are legal dramas, but the layperson isn't going to know.
well, he probably won't read it, but what was really nice for me was I did this for another sort of book club Zoom, and one of the women was on the book club was I think she was an attorney, and anyway, she said, "Listen, it was all fine," and
Oh,
I'm like,
good.
"Yay!" She said it was okay. There was nothing caught me out, so
That's
I'm
perfect.
taking it from her. She gave
That's
me the
right.
tick. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I have or I've heard another author say that having or writing a book is like creating a baby, having the baby, and then having the rest of the world judge your baby on a scale from 1 to 5. And I just wonder, of course, I know you are new to us as American writers, but what are maybe some responses that have surprised you or delighted you from readers, whether it's just about the book in general, or that they were surprised, or maybe that they had figured out what had actually had happened. But I just love hearing about the tour and what other readers have relayed to you.
Oh, I mean, the thing that's been, I guess I've heard most often just in reviews, has been, I want now. Well, in reviews, it's been the infidelity thing that seems to trip people up, which I
Yeah.
get. But I would like what I'd like to say there is, um, do we want to read a story about a happily married woman for 300 pages? I'm not sure. Where's the conflict? You've got to have something to write about. Um, but of course, it's about much more than that. But one of the more surprising questions I've had in interviews has been, um, I think people find the relationship between Beth and Gabriel so authentic. They think that I'm writing about my first love. And I've had that like 3 or 4 times, which I find really surprising. But I now sort of feel, because I've had to think about it, and of course it's not, it's so long ago since I was 19 years old, but or 17 years old in Beth's case. But I do remember my daughter going through heartbreak, and she's 23 now, and I remember when she read one of my drafts, she went, "Oh," because I was so caught up and upset for her. I think she felt a bit of her had gone in, and actually, when you have grown up children, you realize that those feelings, those enormous feelings, are exactly the same. Even, the years pass, but first love is first love. It just feels bigger than anything else, dwarfs everything else. So that was surprising. I can't think, but I know people have asked me some interesting things, and I can't now think of anything really good, but I'll keep thinking as we talk and see if I
Yeah,
can
I put you
remember.
on the spot, but I always like to
That's
hear
okay.
stories from the road.
Yeah.
Well, with all those big emotions, a big emotion in this is grief and how decisions are made because so many characters are grieving over things. Was it hard to write so much grief and walk away from it, especially when you're talking about a death of a child and a death of a relationship, and just move on with your regular day of grocery shopping and laundry?
I think it was okay to move on with the regular day, but I definitely felt very sad writing those scenes, and I definitely feel very sad when I think about them. And something that I did, which I've never done before, and I maybe need to do again for my new novel, is I had a playlist of very weepy strings, instrumental music that just completely encapsulated the three characters, Frank, Beth, and Gabriel. And I listened to it on every dog walk and at every supermarket run and every school run. And so I kept with the tone of the novel, which I guess is quite a sad tone a lot of the time. The grief, I didn't think I'd ever write a novel about a mother losing a child as a mother myself, but Beth arrived and I knew exactly how she felt. I could imagine exactly this dreadful loss and how it really triggered every single decision that she made moving forwards, and the goods and the bads. And so I had no option but to write Beth, I would say. And the brother's grief, I have spoken about this before, but I lost my mum at 21, and I think that I didn't process or deal with the grief and was probably quite good, largely because I went to university, but went back to university and nobody ever said anything. And so it was kind of like, wow, I just got to carry on. And this seismic thing has happened. And so I sort of think, looking back, that I understood Jimmy and Frank's grief so well. I didn't realize it when I wrote it, but I realize it now when I read it, because I had been both of them in a way, and I understood that Jimmy stopped caring about himself because he was only 9, and because his father was in grief himself, and he was a 1950s man, and no adults helped those two boys deal with the loss of their mother. So I think I understood that on a very personal level. And I must say, in terms of writing grief, I've done it a few times. And the new novel, which it's not even really anything yet, it's just an idea and a research process. Um, it did have a theme of grief in it, and I'm just like, do you know what? No, I just can't do this again. So I think I might have written myself out on that one.
I understand that.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about, we'd love to hear about the title and also the cover art. Was Broken Country always the name of the book? And my copy of Broken Country looks different than the ARC that I received. The font is a little bit different, and maybe do you know what I'm talking about?
I do, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
So
I
can you
do.
talk about both of those things?
Yes, I think it's very interesting. There's a lot of heads that go into the cover design, and I think it was decided that the it's more scripty, isn't it? More italic, the ARC copy, that
Yes.
it didn't jump out enough. And it's kind of fascinating because it seems to be a collective decision between the publishers and all kinds of people. And so that once that they came up with that big typeface, which I do agree, I really love the cover and I think it pops. And at one point, funnily enough, it was going to be the oak tree, which is the Barnes and Noble's special edition, and I love that cover. But
Mm.
again, they at Simon and Schuster decided that the yellow and the farmhouse was stronger and bolder, and I think that they were right. It's probably my favorite, although I absolutely love the oak tree as well. What was the other thing you asked me about the cover
The
art?
name of
Oh
the title.
yes, the name, that's it. So weirdly, it was called this very. If you saw the first version and the last version, they were very different books, but there were several scenes that always came across. There's obviously the sheep worrying scene, and quite a lot with Frank. But it was called Savages, and then it was called This Savage Land. And then Broken Country just came into my head one day, and I just felt this is what I want. It just seemed to make so much sense to me. And I think it's because by then I knew I wanted it to be a title that reflected the sort of pastoral beauty of and the fact that the landscape is a character. Um, and I suppose what I was feeling was a marriage is like its own country, and that, it's really about a marriage that's breaking down. So to me, it was very poetic. I remember talking to my agent and saying, it doesn't tell you what it doesn't say on the tin what you're getting. And does that matter? And she said, no, it doesn't matter, because she was always very clear that this book was going to be book group fiction or upmarket narrative or literary fiction. Um, and that it was fine. And there were a few conversations when my book was sold. There were a few editors who wanted it to be different and didn't feel it was the right title. But luckily, it just I think my Karina, my US editor, was very happy with Broken Country, and luckily we kept with it because I do love it. And obviously, it's had a lot of translations in some countries. It doesn't work as Broken Country, but they've all gone very, very close to that sort of like cracks in the earth or things like that. They've all gone along, or one of them is, I think it's Poland, as Wounded Souls, which sounds a little depressing, but apparently in Polish it sounds very beautiful. So
Oh,
everybody's kept with a very poetic title, which I
well,
love.
good choice. Good
Yeah,
choice.
good. Thank you.
We have a question from one of our viewers wants to ask you, do you think Frank and Beth remain together and resolve?
Oh, I love that question. 100% yes. a
Mm.
hundred percent yes. Um, Funnily enough, I was listening to a podcast. It was one of these. It was a podcast that was sort of two book clubbers talking about the book, and they were saying that the ending is it's a little hopeful, but that you have no idea. It's up for the reader to make up their own mind whether Frank and Beth will stay together. I don't feel like that at all. I feel absolutely that she has made that decision. She's ended it with Gabriel. Gabriel is the loser here. I mean, well, they're all losers, but I think Frank and Beth are now allowed a happy life with Grace and with Beth's parents living on the farm. Maybe there's another baby there, who knows? But they're going to be happy together for sure.
We
I
have
think
another.
really,
Go ahead,
I
Elizabeth.
was gonna say, really, with her being able to reckon with what happened with her and Gabriel, as hard as it was, and the infidelity that occurred, it gave her clarity on where she needed to be. And I love the forgiveness. Anytime there's forgiveness and redemption at the end of a story, I'm a sucker for it. So I think she had to go through that and have those questions answered in order to heal, really.
I think she did, and there's quite a few things that she had to realize. Maybe she did need to sleep with Gabriel to know that Frank was her man for sure. Um, but really, it's much more about the fact, I think, because I think a lot of there's two things here. I do believe that Beth and Gabriel could have stayed together. I think they have what it takes, had that not been for Tessa Wolfe and all those interventions and the miscommunications and the young pride and all these things that stopped them from being together. Um, and I think that they both were still wildly attracted to each other, not just physically, but intellectually. And I think they were a good match. But I also think the huge pull of Gabriel was that she is nostalgia and that she wants to go back to who she was before. And of course, that's not possible because she's changed so much in the intervening years, as has Frank and as has Gabriel. And so I guess I was looking at the question, can you ever go back? Um, and I think that another thing that was really important for both of them, I think Frank's arc, which I only really realized late in the process of writing it, was that in prison he faces his grief finally. but and he forgives himself for the guilt that he feels that he didn't watch Bobby as much as he should have. And that is so hugely important for Frank. So he comes back from prison a changed man. He's finally let go of all that guilt. But not only that, I really believe that Beth also has to take responsibility and realize that, you know, she was worried. She knew what the men were like. She knew they were reckless. And as a mum, she should have just, she probably should, there's no should, but she could have kept him safe. You know, she could have. So she had to take responsibility for her part. I think when you're in grief, it's very easy to lash out at the other person. And Frank was the guy on watch that day. But I think that she had to realize how much was her own fault. So they both go through this massive journey. And another thing, although you don't really see much of it in the book, but in those 6 months while they're waiting for the trial, um, she tells him absolutely everything, more than he wants to hear. But they both, it's like they're wiping the slate clean, which is why I know that when he comes back from prison, they have a really happy ending, because they've done it. My goodness, they have gone there and they have gone to the coal face. They've lost a child. They've got through it. They've learned how to grieve. That he's learned how to express his emotion. She's told him all the terrible things she's done and said, "Do you still love me anyway?" And he does, and she does. So they deserve their happy ending, in my opinion.
Agree.
We have a really good question from another viewer. It says, was it challenging to write the story in a way the reader could root for Beth, ending up with either man for most of the novel? Many books clearly position one character as the good guy, but this story felt so much more nuanced.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad you felt like that. Thank you for the great question. I basically it it wasn't too challenging because, but I guess what I wanted to do was create two men. I wanted to ask the question, is it possible to love two people at once? And so to answer that question, I think yes. I think of course we're all so black and white about it, but it's not like that. Real life is much more of a grey area. And to answer that question, I had to create two men who connected to completely different sides of who Beth is. So you've got Gabriel, and he's this very wildly passionate, romantic, creative writer, and he represents the intellectual life that Beth craves. But then on the other side, you've got Frank, and he's the good guy, the definitive good guy. He's stoical and he's funny and he's kind and he looks after his brother. He looks after everybody. And crucially, he introduces her to farm life and to the pastoral world, which she falls in love with just as much as he does and just as much as she loves him. So she faces an impossible choice. And I can tell you that I always knew from day one that she would end up with Frank. And Frank is probably my favorite character. I think he's a lot of people's favorite character, but he's the one that I always went back to the book. Well, I only stopped writing it twice, but it was always for Frank I went back because I needed to know his ending. Um, Frank more than Beth, it's strange to say, but that's how I felt. And I suppose by doing those two timelines, I really wanted the reader to feel completely swept up because I don't know if you've read The Paper Palace, but I didn't know which man I wanted her to Elle, I think she's called, and he's Jonas and Peter. I didn't know who I wanted her to end up with, and I really wanted to emulate that. So for me, it wasn't difficult, and I can tell you that there were times when I was writing the novel when I thought, oh, you know, could she end up with Gabriel? Because I really wish, or could she at least have longer with him? But it was, I always knew she'd end up with Frank. So I hope the reader feels the way I felt, which was quite torn, and the way Beth feels, which is very torn.
You know, it's funny. I know there's been a lot of people saying, "Oh, it's similar to Paper Palace," but I love this one so much more than Paper Palace. And I
Absolutely.
almost wonder if it being set in the past changed it, and with a contemporary story was a little harder, maybe with the infidelity. I don't, but I just have to say, I love this one so much more than Paper Palace.
Oh, thank you. That
But
means the world to me.
oh, this is like a lifetime favorite book of mine. I just,
Oh, Elizabeth.
I
Thank
can't
you.
girl enough. But I wanted to ask, you know, of course, I love as a book buyer finding debut novelists, and I'm sure you're laughing with us thinking of you as a debut novelist, but just in our American paradigm. Of course, you have skyrocketed with your American debut. What has that been like after being a writer for so many years? And what was the call like when you heard that you were going to be a Reese pick?
Oh, I mean, just wild, so incredible. The whole thing has been absolutely fantastic. It's just so exciting. It really is. The way it's been received in America has been amazing. Absolutely amazing. Because I love the fact that you said, I guess the thing I was a little bit surprised, but I think now I'm used to it. I guess the novel has such universal themes. I thought before it went out on submission to publishers, would it be too English? That's what I was worried about. So I've been absolutely just I felt very honoured by the reception it's had in the States. And in terms of the Reese one, it was actually my husband works in the music industry, and funnily enough, we were watching one of his bands, a very noisy gig, and it was just like I didn't get the call, but I got this message, and I went, "Oh, I'm just going to go and take this because it's quite a strange time." And yeah, it was just you won't believe it. It was about 11 months. I think it was the March before, so it was 12 months before publication. So it was something I had to hold on to for a very long time. And Reese's Book Club I really love. I love her picks. I read almost all of them. So yeah, it was a massive honor and amazing.
Well, and rest assured, we Americans love a British story like nobody's business. So don't ever worry about it being too British for us.
Oh, that's great. And actually, you were saying just a minute ago about the past, and I think my next book, which I'm sort of working on the idea, I just feel I'm going to write in the past again. I think I'm going to write in the 60s. I just love it, and yeah, I just completely love it. It's partly because you don't have all the noise of modern life, which I think frees you up completely as a writer. Um, but I like reading about it. I like researching it. I like picturing it. Yeah, I'm not really ready to give up on the period novel yet.
Good.
Good. Yeah.
We'll follow you anywhere you go, Claire. So whatever you
Oh,
want to do.
thank you. I love to hear it.
I think, yes, you can deep dive into the Englishness of it all. I think there was one phrase, and I cannot remember exactly what it is, but I had to look it up, and it was not familiar to me as an American. Something about in the silks or something.
Yes, it's
Okay.
so funny. It's because so when you have so basically, of course, you probably know all this, but you have your copy edits, your American ones and your British ones. And I remember the American copy editor saying that was one of the things that she picked up on. A lot of the things the tiny, tiny things, just words, spellings, all of those things changed for the American version, but I sort of stuck my neck out with it in his silks. I think it's getting his silks, isn't it?
Okay.
Getting his silks, which means becoming a barrister, because it's just an expression that's so well known. It was an English story, was the Old Bailey, but yes, I think it's very English, that phrase.
Okay. I'm glad to know that it was because I was like, what is that mean? I had to look it up, but I loved it. I love learning about all of those things.
Well, and
Thanks.
barristers are different than
And lawyer.
lawyers, correct? Because when we took a tour of all the Irish Supreme Court with my husband last year, and I think a barrister is different than a lawyer. There's
Yeah, so
different
i-
different
in the
education.
UK, the barristers are the one who stand up and present the case, and the solicitor is the one doing the legal advice with the family. So they might be in the court, but they're certainly not presenting. So the barristers are performers, really. So yeah, it is quite different.
That's fascinating. Well, this is a question I always love to ask authors, especially when you said the word movie earlier. If this were to be a movie, have you envisioned who might be the characters?
I mean, I have, but it just changes all the time. initially, I'll tell you, Daisy Edgar Jones, I think would be a great Beth, and but then people keep saying to me Florence Pugh or all kinds of young actresses. But funnily enough, with Daisy, I did see Daisy in my head with before there was any whiff of it that it might be a movie. I could see her, and I thought she could do it. And then, I mean, I don't know, someone like Timothy Chalamet, wouldn't he be a great Gabriel, I think. Um, uh, and then I don't know. I mean, I really don't know for Frank, but I kind of half of me thinks it would be nice to get Daisy and Paul Mescal back together. Did you watch
Oh,
Normal
God.
People? You
I
know,
love
that
that would be
off
so
the
good.
chart screen chemistry.
This has
So
we have
he'd be great Frank, wouldn't he?
would be because I was thinking maybe a young Tom Hardy would be a good one too.
Yes, yes.
Unfortunately, he's probably too old now to be him, but
I
that's
guess yes, I know. I'm sure if it happens, it'll probably be completely different people and I'll have no idea. But I'm sure if it happens, they'll be amazing.
yes.
I
Oh,
think
James
also
McAvoy would be a good one, a good Frank as well.
who?
James McAvoy, he was in Atonement.
Oh, he'd be amazing, but he's too old now.
No, they are too old. He's all gray now too, unfortunately.
He's too old, yeah. Yeah. There's Leo Woodall, who
I
do
don't
you
know.
know him?
Uh-uh.
Let me think. Did you watch One Day? It's
Yes,
very
yes.
okay.
He'd be a good
He
Gabriel.
yeah, he'd be a good Gabriel. Oh, I know who else would be a good Gabriel. Jacob Elordi. But maybe that's too obvious from Saltburn. Did you watch Saltburn?
Yes, and now he is a Heathcliff. He's filming
Yes,
Heights with Heathcliff.
it,
They made
that's right.
all these
Who's
rich.
Catherine?
Margot Robbie.
Oh,
Blonde.
wow.
She's blonde, which I'm like, I don't know about that for Catherine. We'll
Okay.
see.
Yes, we'll
We'll see.
see.
I don't want to judge it just yet, but it's very hard
Okay.
the classic literature for me.
I think that means Jacob Elordi's going to be out. He's just done too many of those similar roles,
Yes, yes.
maybe.
I love that we're taking this seriously too.
Yeah, we're taking it really seriously. Oh, I do this with my friends the whole time. I've got
So,
one friend who's used to work for a theatrical casting agency. And once she read the book, she's like, "Sorry, it's me again." And then she's
I
just
love that.
messaging me, WhatsApping me all the time with new ideas. I'm like, well, if it happens, it won't be down to me, but I like the ideas.
Fun. Elizabeth, did you know any of those names we were talking about?
I've heard of Margot Robbie. I
Okay.
was thinking, back in the day, Colin Firth would be really good as Gabriel. I just don't, I don't know actors. I mean, I watch TV. I just don't know who
You're
they,
busy reading
I'm
too.
reading. Yeah, I'd rather just make them up.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Well, I have a question. Allison, you and I, either you or I could ask it, but I do know, can you tell us a little bit about your books that were published in the UK? Because I hear that maybe we may be getting them now across the pond.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. In fact, they're available as ebooks, if anyone has e-readers and fancies doing a follow-up. So there are two. I would say Pictures of Him, the first novel, is the most similar to Broken Country because it features a very passionate first love affair that comes back. And also it's a boy from a huge house set in Somerset. Those are the rest of it's different. It's a woman called Catherine who's married but she's mute and she's in a nursing home and you know it when it opens that she's witnessed something very traumatic, this event, and then so there's the suspense. It goes all the way through, or they're trying to get her to speak, and then it sort of flips. Some people, if people don't like jumping timelines, it will drive them mad because there's three or four. But I think it all works out. So you go back to this very passionate university love affair that she had, and then the timeline when her university love Lucian appears again. And so I would say that's the most similar. But then Days You Were Mine is an adoption story, and it's completely different, really. It's set in the 70s, 1972, and I think the modern timeline is around 2001, and it's about an adoption between a young man, sorry, a birth parent reunion between a young man, adopted man, and his birth mother, which does end up going wrong. But what you have is this incredibly passionate love story set in 1972, and that's the love story of Alice, his birth mother. And it's quite sort of Daisy Jones in a way, because she falls in love with somebody who's in a band, and she's this, budding artist. So I managed to do a lot of research into the art and music world at that time, which was really fun. And in the modern 2001 timeline, her son Luke is works in the music industry, and he's also sort of involved in the world of bands. And so it's yeah. And actually, what was really lovely with that one was I got to do an edit, because it's got new covers, new titles, both in the UK, it's being re-released, and in the US. And I never really loved the ending, and no one ever really, I don't think authors ever get to do this, but I got to go back and write a new ending for Days You Were Mine, and it's way more hopeful, way more redemptive. I love it. And it always jarred me, because I think it was a 2-book deal and I wrote it quite quickly, and I just felt it could be happier. Anyway, it got a happier ending.
Love it. Can't wait to read them.
I know it.
Oh, thank you.
Well, can you tell us anything you're working on next?
Yeah, it's just literally such early days. I can tell you that I've got a family. Have any of you ever read I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith?
Yes.
It's one of my favorite books. So I think this has got a nod to it. It's got this I love a book about a sort of eccentric madcap English family. So I've got this family, and I've got a setting which is a sort of Dorset seaside clifftop hotel. So looking over the sea, and I've got shades of Rebecca in there as well, and it is a sort of a love triangle. I was hoping it wouldn't be, but I think it is. Um, and so it's kind of about a girl whose husband has drowned, and this is what I think. But look, I haven't really written very much at all, so I may just not be able to pursue it. But I think it's going to be all right. And then suddenly this composer comes into her life, and and then it all goes on from there. I won't, no more spoilers. Anyway, I mean, it's early days.
Well, we're already on the edge of our seat. That sounds amazing. Well, thank you so much, Claire. I echo Elizabeth in saying that this is probably one of my favorite books in a long time. It's so wonderful. One of my all-time favorites is Atonement, and this reminded me so much of it. So it was wonderful to
Oh, me
revisit
too.
a good forbidden love. If it's okay with you, I'm going to use the last few seconds to introduce our next book for book club, and put it in the chat for anyone that would like to join us. I'll let Elizabeth tell you more about it, but the link to register and to buy the book for next book club is in the chat, and it will also be in your email that's coming 24 hours after this Zoom ends.
All right. And again, I echo everything that Allison said. And I know I usually read things way ahead of time, and then she reads right beforehand so we can have both perspectives. But when I read it in October, I thought, oh, Allison is going to love this book. It's just the perfect Allison book as well. But next month is the Treasure Hunters Club with Tom Ryan. And this book reminded me of a mashup of The Goonies meets Anne of Green Gables meets the Thursday Murder Club. And I loved it. So I can't wait to talk to Tom in May.
That sounds
Right.
amazing. Can I just say thank you for having me on, and thank you everybody for reading my book. It's been such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Claire. We hope to get you to Fabled soon, and you can actually meet our owl and be in the shop soon.
Me too.
Right.
All right.
Bye,
Thanks so
everybody.
much.
We'll
Thanks
see
so
you next
much. Bye.
Bye.